Last week, Trump's based Commerce Secretary Harold Lutnick floated eliminating all income tax on anybody making under $150,000 a year. That would exempt roughly 85% of American taxpayers, about 130 million families, who would no longer be subject to an annual financial colonoscopy to pay for transgender operas in Peru. If you want the operas, you got to mail them a check. So Lutnick announced it in an interview with CBS, saying, quote, "How about no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, Social Security? These will change America. I know what Trump's goal is. No tax on anybody who makes under $150,000 a year. That is his goal." This would be music to the ears of those 130 million Americans who would save on average $7,000 a year in income tax. A Tax Foundation study last year estimated the average American spends 53 hours doing their taxes. So that's 7.9 billion hours a year, on top of 550 billion paid to tax preparers and accountants. Keep in mind, Americans say preparing taxes is one of the least pleasant things one can do while remaining alive, somewhere between standing in line at the DMV and dental surgery. Now, exempting 85% of Americans would reduce taxes by about $800 billion, but probably a third of that comes right back in the form of new growth. Because tax cuts grow the economy. People work harder, they expand their business, or they start a business in the first place. The new jobs and higher incomes raise government revenue, so payroll, sales, property, even tariffs. Business tax cuts actually play closer to 90% or more. The Heritage Foundation found Trump's first-term tax cuts essentially paid for themselves. Still, this is personal tax, so you're probably looking at $400 or $500 billion less going to the IRS. Now, that should be very easy to cut. I mentioned in recent videos that if we're serious, we could cut 1 to 2 trillion, the kinds of numbers Elon is floating, with zero negative impact on voters. So it all sounds great, but there is a catch, because exempting 85% from the income tax could mean open season on the remaining 15% who pay the bills and create most of the jobs. As Ben Franklin put it, quote, "When the people find they can vote themselves money, this will herald the end of the republic." Now, the truly rich can take care of themselves. They have lawyers and accountants, but almost 40% of the 13 million taxpayers between $150,000 and $400,000 a year are actually small business owners. Over half of those from 400 to a million are small business owners. These small businesses employ nearly half of all Americans, 62 million souls. So at a minimum, you want some allowance for small business. Now, Trump has floated this with his Made in America break. You could also just raise the exemption to 400 or more, or my ideal, just get rid of the entire income tax altogether, something Trump has been very sympathetic to. And eminently doable if you ditch the Senate filibuster for spending and slash round about $2 trillion in federal spending. So what's next? Brought to you by Unchained.com. Donald Trump is taking aim at the foundations of Imperial Washington, the income tax, and FDR's New Deal that created the imperial bureaucracy and was built with that tax. So long as it can be designed so small business is not the last man standing, repealing the income tax for 85% of Americans will go a long ways to starving that beast. Okay, we'll be watching. See you next time.